The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests of the Side Project Live are not necessarily those of LRN.FM, Tuiville, the Illinois Libertarian Party, and a bunch of other people.
We'd like to invite you and all the members of your household
to gather around and join us now
for a very special episode of
Side Project Live. And what's so special about it?
I'm not wearing any pants.
Let's hear your voice through any AM radio.
Hey, good looking. I'll be back to pick you up later. Welcome once again, folks, Romans, countrymen, people from Crete, Illinois, you know, the Cretans. There's a bunch of Cretans in Crete. Welcome once again to another episode of Side Project Live. Once again, Morris, Illinois. This is Jimmy G.
And from Lockport, Illinois, Sir Eric Ferguson. I have my
Elementary Watson.
That's against the law in this country if this were broadcast television.
Yeah, but
camera now.
Hey, you know what though? Not too much longer though. That might be illegal on the internet.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, that's a whole thing that we did a show on a while back. But it's if anyone isn't scared by what's going on with the whole net neutrality thing about how the government wants to regulate the internet as a there we go, as a utility, you should be scared because they're going to be able to impose taxes on you, tell you what you can and can't say. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is fact because when you give it, it's the whole camel with the nose under the tent thing. I mean, you know, it's gonna creep its way in, and then you get idiots like Dick Durbin, who introduced the Main Street Fairness Act, i.e., Tax the Internet Act, and now Amazon, just at the beginning of February, is starting to, if you live in Illinois, is going to start collecting state taxes on all your purchases. Granted, you were supposed to report them voluntarily on your. Thinking of which, I got to resubmit my tax form. Some reason the state won't take it. Don't ask me why. But yeah, I mean, you were supposed to report anything you bought online on your Illinois state tax form so you could pay them more money. And, you know, it's a bunch of bull crap. But seriously, people need to be scared of that.
It's what government does. And the worst part is half the population, give or take, is asking for it. We asked the government to demolish our healthcare system, and they did. You know, we ask them to do these things. People ask government to stick their hands in where it doesn't belong, and then they do, and they stuff them where they really shouldn't belong, and then you cry. Say no.
As the meme going around the internet recently says, it's so cold outside that I saw a politician with his hands in his own pockets.
Correct.
And joining us is Lec Zorn.
Yeah, greetings, bud. Glad to be connected. Hopefully it'll work out this week again, but like it did last week. But yeah, you know, the funny thing about, you know, well, the tragic thing about situations such as the one you were mentioning is that, you know, these problems, you know, such as exorbitant healthcare costs, you know, wealth discrepancy, they're, you know, some of the big, you know, problems that are targeted by so-called social justice activists. And, you know, yet those social justice activists don't realize that, you know, what the problems that that they think big government can solve actually exist because of big government.
Yeah.
What was it Harry Brown said? Government is the only organization that'll break your legs and then give you a crutch and say, "Oh, so sorry that your legs are broken."
Yeah, look, we talked about before the history of the minimum wage, designed to keep certain workers in poverty. That's what it's there to do. It's what it was built to do. Don't ask, you know, don't ask for it. Bad idea.
We were talking before the show about we brought up we brought up, we were talking about Alice Cooper, and I brought up his album Dragontown, and one line in one of the songs is that the road to hell is littered with nice guys with good intentions.
Yeah, of course, yeah, it is, and of course, healthcare is one of the biggest current examples. Like Eric said, the minimum wage, and the thing is, I always tell people, don't take my word for it. Just go look at the congressional record of the Davis-Bacon Act of 1931, which was it's a minimum wage act for federal construction projects, and it was the first minimum wage law ever passed in this country. And there were members of Congress, and this is on record for anybody to read for free. There were members of Congress who went on record saying that they supported that bill because their white constituents were losing jobs to blacks. And that's not even unique to America. You go back to the apartheid era of South Africa, and the leading advocates of a minimum wage law for blacks were whites-only labor unions.
And you know what? And it occurs to me that whenever they introduce any of this legislation, and we were just talking about this, that the the internet thing was called the either Marketplace or Main Street Fairness Act. The biggest stealing of our rights in Congress was called the USA Patriot Act. This whole healthcare debacle is called the Affordable Health Care Act. Right. I mean, it's 1984. I mean, it's double speak. It's double plus good.
Premiums are triple what they were before they proposed it, and are the deductibles. That's the Affordable Care Act. This is what you get when you ask for it.
You're lying.
Lies.
Because the government says it's lies.
And even older programs like Medicare, for example. I mean, the elderly are now paying more than twice as much out of pocket, for healthcare when adjusted for inflation. So, most people on the streets, they think that, if we didn't have Medicare, nobody would live past 65.
Isn't that crazy?
One thing I did forget to say, and man, I have got to get this in the intro here. Let me see here. If you want to contact us, our email is thesideproject2@gmail.com. You can tweet us at thesideproject2 or use the hashtag TSPLive. Our Google Voice number is 815-200-4912. We do have the Q&A open. And you know what I keep forgetting to do is, and I haven't done it in a long time, is monitor the Radio Fubar chat room, which is always open. I think I'm going to just bring that up right now. And our topic for today, we actually did this topic a couple of weeks ago, but the audio was just so bad, and I apologize for that. And that we didn't promote it after the show was done. Was about student loans and the scam that they are. So I kind of wanted to revisit that so that we can actually get our get to the topic. Yeah. So and this topic was your baby, Lex. So what do you have for us?
Well, that federal student loans is one of those issues that I didn't think about much until the last campaign. I mean, I knew they were unconstitutional, but I never gave them, I never considered them to be a top priority. And then I heard Ron Paul talk about their history and basically how, it all goes back to the country's relative illiteracy on economics. There's a concept that is only slightly more advanced than 1 + 1 = 2, and that's that price is determined by supply and demand. And basically, if you go back before federal student loans, when my parents were growing up, college was a significant expense, but it was not an overwhelming expense. And basically, if you did not come from a rich family, you generally paid for it in two ways. But before you even decided to go, you weighed the costs versus the benefits. You put a lot of thought into the matter so that you'd make the right decision. Would you go to a college? Would you go to a vocational school? Or would you just go get a job? And if you did go to college, typically you would work. You do one of two things. You would work a full-time job during summer break, and then you would work a part-time job. Maybe you'd flip burgers for 15 or 20 hours a week during the school year, and you'd pay for your college as you went along. Or you would, just get a job and work for 4 or 5 years and save up enough to pay for your entire college education at once.
Or just go out and get that 30-year career job with the pension and stuff like Dad did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there were even, a lot of people, they would get jobs without, a post-high school education and, work them for decades and, retire and be comfortable and have good benefits. So then what happened is that, if you did go to college, maybe, you would graduate at 22 or 23, or maybe if you just worked, for full-time for several years, you might graduate at 27 or 28, but either way, you would be debt-free at the time you graduated. And then furthermore, because the colleges did not know that they were going to get a lot of students, they were forced to keep their rates reasonable. So supply and demand, the free market worked. And then, the government stepped in with these guaranteed, with these federal student loans. And what happened is that students, who shouldn't have been going to college, who wouldn't have been going to college, started going, and without giving much thought, because they thought, oh, we get a loan, and that they don't think about paying it back. They just take it, and of course then colleges, they saw that they were guaranteed to get far more students, so they hiked the rates, and then that even hurt the people who could have paid for college, or who would have paid for college ordinarily, or even who do pay for college, because they're still going to be paying more because of all the increased rates. So what happens is that that the students who go to college are paying a lot more than they would, and the students who wouldn't ordinarily go to college, most of them don't graduate, and they still end up strapped with debt. And even people who graduate, with law degrees or medical degrees, I mean, they're still going to be working for years to pay their loans back, and they're all enslaved to the government. And for those of you who don't know, federal loans are exempt from bankruptcy laws. So with any government law, you have to ask yourself, who's benefiting, who's hurting? It's the college administrators who are further lining their pockets with these laws, while the students who these laws were supposed to help who are getting screwed.
And it's and it comes right back down to something that we've talked about before, and the fact is that people think that the government is a magical goodies creator or a bottomless purse or stuff along those lines, and it just ain't so. They have to get their money from somewhere, and they eventually get it from us. And in the case of student loans, they get it from us plus exorbitant interest. It took me like 10 years to pay back my student loans, like $20,000, maybe even a little bit longer than that. No.
Yeah. And of course, the government.
14 years. 14 years.
The thing about borrowing money that a lot of people don't understand is the amortization schedule. That's the reason why these ads for your car notes and home mortgages, the reason why they push percentage rates so much is it doesn't really matter very much. The total amount you might pay over the whole duration of a mortgage, it might look like a big number to you, but you're going to pay that thing for 30 years, give or take, whatever it is. They make a lot of money. The cost of that loan is very, very expensive, and the same is true for colleges. So the interest rate, they use it as a big marketing tool, but the way interest is compounded and the way they pull the tiny little percentage off your principal, it takes forever to pay it, and you pay them a fortune.
And I saw this a couple of years ago on Stossel on Fox Business, and first of all, for anyone that criticizes Fox News for being this right-wing thing, at least unlike every other news network, they give a libertarian a show on there, so I got to give them at least props for that. But he did a thing about colleges and student loans a few years ago, and he went to this college, I think in Iowa City, Iowa, and I'm good at geography. And one of the administrators, it might have been someone in admissions, took their film crew on a tour, And they're showing them all of these things that they put on there, like these hot tubs and spas and huge, gigantic rock climbing walls. Not these little portable ones that you see at carnivals and stuff, but like these huge ones that are like 3-4 stories tall, and all of the stuff. Because, well, we're just trying to get all the students here. And why are they trying to get the students? Because the students are getting college loans, and the college doesn't have to worry about them being paid off, because you can't discharge those loans. Maybe if they were exempt from, maybe if they weren't exempt from bankruptcy, these schools would be, oh, I don't know, maybe spending the money more wisely and not going out of their way to recruit students the way they are. They're not just asking students to come there. They're actively recruiting them. I mean, McDonald's doesn't go out on the street and like. They advertise. They try to make people make the choice between them and Burger King. The colleges are trying to pull them in, and if you're an athlete, that's double plus good.
Yeah, it's it's a situation in which basically people just have to ask yourself who gets the gold mine, who gets the shaft, and it also is an example. It's an example of what happens every time, and I mean every time, the government interferes with the free market. I mean, one thing history has shown time and again is that the free market works. You don't have to go further than your local grocery store to see that, where that you have, without government help, you have apples from Washington, strawberries from a local farm, bananas from Costa Rica, oranges from Florida, et cetera, that all made it, to your local grocery store. That distributors made sure the products got there, the farmers made sure the products got there, and the consumers buy those items and make sure that that the store and the farmers stay in business.
I'm going to correct you on one thing there. You said the free market works.
Yeah.
I like the phrase the free market works best. Nothing's 100% foolproof.
No, not 100%.
But I mean, it certainly works better than than the situation we're in, and you can't. That's one thing that you certainly cannot deny.
Competition ensures that these products are what they are. Now, they don't always get it right. One nefarious company will leave a hole in the roof above their peanut butter factory line. It happens. But no one's buying that anymore. Once the word gets out, it stops. Competition ensures that these products, including college education, will be what they are, and that they'll be for a price that seems appropriate.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and there are businesses over the years, not a lot, but there are businesses who I have chosen to withdraw future business from because I got poor service there.
Absolutely.
And that's and there are businesses that fail every day, and businesses must be allowed to fail, and colleges should be forced to be businesses.
Has there ever been? I'm trying to think here. Has there ever been a college that's failed? I cannot think of one. I'm sure there has to have been, but if they have failed, they were most likely one of these private colleges. But with money guaranteed because of student loans and federal grants and that sort of thing, there's no way they can fail.
Yeah, and of course, there's one college I take my hat off to, which is Hillsdale College up in Michigan. Now they are a right-wing Christian college, but what I love about them is that they're the only college I know of. There could be others, there probably are, but they're the only college that I know of that will take no government money whatsoever.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I might not agree with what they're teaching, but hey, if they don't take government money, good.
So that's one thing that I love about them, and that's the way education should be a product that's left entirely to the free market. I mean, that's why I always talk about how ridiculous this whole debate was about school prayer and busing and integration. If the free market had been in charge, those issues would have never existed, and so much unnecessary division And it's an example of how divisive the government is. I mean, all these divisive issues would have never happened under a free market.
And once again, I mean, it all boils down to the funding.
Yeah.
If you divest the money from it, then some of these issues will go away, like prayer in school and that sort of thing. But since the money is coming from the government, they have to, you know, adapt this one-size-fits-all mentality. And
Yeah.
There's no such thing as one-size-fits-all. I mean, you know, more apt is one-size-fits-most.
Yeah.
You can't. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I mentioned it on the program that failed.
The program that shall not be named.
Yes, the damage of subsidies, and it's a good example because it's an easy example to see. The digital converter box, when the broadcast TV switched from analog, to digital, the government offered up to 2 coupons per household for $40 that you could use to purchase one of these boxes, so your old TV could get the new signal. And what was happening was the cost to manufacture these things versus the retail price. There's almost, they're really inexpensive to make, especially in high volume at the time. So when the store can sell this product to you for $0 or $10 out the door, and it costs them, $12 to buy it in the first place, there's no incentive for price competition. And the result was, and I saw some think tanks, Cato or somebody did some research on it, and they estimated that the devices cost about $23 each more than they should have on account of the government subsidy. Then look at college education. Adjusted for inflation and so on and the way things go, food, the last number I saw, Bloomberg did, I think, from 1978, food is 244 times more expensive than it was then. College education, 1,130-something times more expensive. Why?
Yeah.
Subsidies. Big, huge subsidies.
And you got to wonder, is it really worth it? I mean, what are you getting? I mean, colleges these days are turning out kids that have the philosophical and political bent that their instructors have, and a lot of them are just going for like general education or liberal arts or whatever, and a lot of them aren't learning much. I mean, God bless the ones, or what, insert deity here, the ones that are going to college and studying to be doctors and all of the stuff that they're going through. But the average kid just doesn't care. I mean, college is like a big party to them. And, they're not having to pay. They're getting the loans. They're getting the grants. They're getting the money from mom and dad. When I went to college, I couldn't live on campus. I had to have a second job to afford rent and stuff. And even then, I had gotten into trouble with credit cards just trying to live.
I had a peer in high school that when we were talking about what are you doing after school, he was choosing his college or university based on the quality of the parties.
Yeah.
Oh, so we went to Carbondale.
I kid you not. He wanted to go to Bradley because he really liked the parties there.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the way college athletics are so big, I'm sure there's some kids who go to some college because they're a fan of the football team or the basketball team.
And then what do these colleges do? I mean, then you get people with like these, you get administrators that are living like kings. I mean, for those who heard, we had Claire Ball on the show a while back. She's running for trustee for the College of DuPage up here, and they are like really horrible, corrupt. First of all, I mean, it's a government junior college. I should probably put the camera on me when I'm talking. And no, I cough. And the board president is like one of the most corrupt people up there. And in the middle of the night or whatever, I mean, they gave him like this almost like $1 million golden parachute as a retirement thing without notice of the meeting. And then people got wind of it, and so they held a meeting, and then on top of that, at that meeting, they had a whole bunch of people on there that were at the meeting that were complaining about this golden parachute, and the board voted to give it to him anyway. They ignored the will of the people, and this guy is getting like almost $1 million, maybe it's $750,000. I don't remember the exact number, but for being corrupt and quitting.
Yeah.
If I'm corrupt and if I steal from my employer, I work for a pharmaceutical retailer, and if I got caught stealing something from them, not only would I get fired, but depending on the thing that I stole, I could end up life in prison. You know, I don't have access to the things that would give me life in prison, but if I did have access to that, I could be thrown in prison. I wouldn't be given $1 million golden parachute.
Yeah.
But this is what the money is going to with colleges. They don't care. It's guaranteed money. It's the magical goodies creator.
Yeah, and you know, and of course, what it ends up being harmful to the people, both to the people who would not have gone to college without these loans, and even it ends up being harmful to the people who would have gone to college anyway, because it increases the. I mean, basically, the only way you're not getting screwed is if you're on scholarship. You know, and I once heard an analysis. I don't remember who it was. It was a commentator during the last presidential campaign, and he gave an example of what it would be like. You know, of course, so I pointed out that most people paid for college out of pocket prior to the student loans. But hypothetically, though, this commentator made a great example. Let's say we get rid of federal student loans, and some people decide they still want student loans anyway. Well, you know, here's how it would work if it were left up to the market. You'd go to the bank. They would want to see transcripts of your high school grades to make sure that you could get the job done in college, to make sure that you would be in position to get a good enough job to pay the investment. They would make sure that you were going to get a degree that would be marketable. You know, they wouldn't fork over 6 figures so you could get a general studies degree.
Yeah, if I go to Fifth Third Bank and I want a car note, they want to know what the car is. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
And they won't give you a loan. They won't give you a loan if the car is like, you know, in disrepair or older or that sort of thing.
1987 Jeep Wrangler with 400,000 miles, and I want a loan for $30,000. Get out of here. You know.
You go.
And
you go.
Yeah, I mean, the free market wouldn't take care of, of paying 6 figures for people who want degrees that are not marketable and who are at best mediocre high school students.
Yeah. Right. You know, the other thing too is the other thing too is what does your tuition pay for? And if you guys probably have seen this, maybe some of our listeners / viewers have or haven't, but Taxpayers United puts together, a list of the top pensioners in Illinois, and of the top 200, and you should see these numbers, they are amazing. Of the top 200 pension recipients in this state, almost all of them are in education.
Gee, there's a
wow.
Well, and they're not just double dipping on pensions; they're triple, quadruple, sometimes quintuple dipping.
Well, I mean,
and they're taking home millions. Not just millions, multiple millions.
Yeah, the numbers on top. Retired from University of Illinois Chicago, Tapas Gupta. Guess what his annual pension is? $440,000 a year.
Oh my God! Wow, that's an eye opener.
Okay, well, I was off the mark with millions, but it's still no less ridiculous.
A year.
Because $400,000 a year, let's say he retires, the retirement age for educators is you can retire after 55. And if you live like another 30 years, that's $12 million for one person.
Yeah.
Nobody should be bringing home nobody, and he's not a teacher. He's an administrator.
Oh, man.
And we're not picking on the teachers here. We're picking on the administrators because they're the ones that are mostly the problem. And then this guy, we're going to be if his pension stands, we're going to be paying him at least maybe not at least, but we're going to be paying him around $12 million. If I keep on the course I'm on now, I'm not going to make that much money in my lifetime. Probably won't make that much in 10 of my lifetimes. And he's going to get it in 30 years.
Yeah. Here, DuPage High School District 88. This is the 4th highest pension recipient, Beverly Lopatka, retired at age 56. And her contribution of the lifetime payout is 0.8% is what she paid into her pension program. And her annual pension is $399,000.
Yeah,
you know,
that's totally sustainable, and they wonder why this state is going down the tubes.
Well, and rather than try to fix this system, okay, we have contracts should be honored. We promised we're going to pay this. We'll have to deal with that. But moving forward, you have to say no. Instead, we're going to raise more money to try to pay for it. No, stop paying for it. You just have to stop.
Yeah, and the thing is that most people in the workforce today have no idea what a pension is.
No.
We got 401ks. And things are so hard in these days for those of us that are just members of the workforce that we're having to borrow from it all the time and then have to pay that back. And it's a ridiculous system. And there's no way that the school administrators, the high school, college, or whatever, and this is mostly about student loans today, there's no way they should be making that much. At least not in pension. I mean, if they're doing their job and they're doing a good job, then as long as they're on the job, sure. But if you're not doing anything, well, let's put it this way. Okay, because of my foot surgery in December, for the first 6 weeks, I got full pay compensation. I am currently on now half pay compensation, and that runs out in March. After that, I don't get any pay if I'm still if I can't go back to work. I'm screwed.
yeah.
And that's the way society works, good or bad. That's the way it works.
On this list, I have their list up in front. And they update it every once in a while. This is from April the 1st of 2013, a couple years old. They do it every quarter or half a year or something like that, but you can find the current one. Of these top 200 pensioners, 3 are not in education.
Wow. That's
One
amazing.
legislator, couple of city of employees. Everybody else is universities or high schools, mostly universities.
Legislators are a horse of a different color. As far as I'm concerned, not a single one of those should be making $70,000 a year with no expense, no expense account. But that's
and then a $216,000 a year pension.
I remember. Was it last year? Where one of the few good things the governor at that time of Illinois did was he was trying to reduce the pay of our state legislators, and the state legislators filed a lawsuit against the governor. The state is in trouble. They're the guys doing it. They don't want to sacrifice their pay. We could get off on that whole. We could get off on that whole rabbit trail.
Yeah, there are 10,000. People on the Illinois pension program getting over $100,000 a year. Almost all of them are in education. Somebody's lying about something.
If you made while you were on the job $100,000 a year, then I have no problem paying that. But most of these people were not making $100,000 a year when they were teaching or doing whatever.
This is what we pay them to not work. If I made $100,000 a year, I put enough money away. I don't pension. Pfft, get out of here. It's unnecessary.
You know what? What are we doing to farmers too, though? I mean, I don't know how much they're doing it anymore, but they're paying them to not grow crops.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
The whole system is messed up. But I mean, you also got to figure out a cost-benefit analysis. I briefly touched on it. Are the students really gaining anything from going to college? In my personal opinion, most of them should be going to a technical school.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that it's a shame to me that technical schools, vocational schools, have gotten such a bad rap, because they've done a great job for decades training kids for very successful careers that will always be in demand and that can pay very well.
Indeed, and if you go to college, I went to college. Stupidest thing, I went to college for radio broadcasting. Okay, if I would have gone and I have all of these student loans out, and you have to take classes that don't have anything to do with broadcasting, like Bible 1, stuff like that. And I mean, I can see some of them like speech and that, but you have that, and then you get out there and your degree or your whatever. I didn't actually graduate. Is sitting by the wayside. You don't do anything with it. You get into the industry, into broadcasting, and by the time you leave, you've been working for the industry for like 9 years. You're getting 90 minutes a week, making $7.75 an hour. If I would have gone to a technical school, I could probably be making $60,000-$75,000, working on, I don't know, HVAC or something right now. Because there's demand for computer programmers, for people into HVAC, for automotive technicians. How much of a demand is there for broadcasters? I mean, there's no money in broadcasting unless your last name is Limbaugh or Stern.
Another example.
Eric knows what I'm talking about.
all too well.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, and another example. I knew a guy. I have a friend named Robert who has a younger brother, and anyway, so Robert got a bachelor's degree from IU in political science, and ended up, basically working a desk job for like $13 an hour, which is a living, but certainly not much more. And then his younger brother never went to college. He went to a vocational school, graduated. Mm-hmm. And his first job offer when he got out of vocational school at the age of 20 or so was like for $30 an hour working as an auto mechanic.
I've been doing what I've been doing for quite some time, and I'm only making 20. And in this day and age, you cannot raise a family of 5 on 20 an hour. You can't do it.
Yeah, I understand. So, but but the point is that this is an example like my friend, he went to college, got a bachelor's degree, got a fairly good GPA. I think he had over a 3.0, and he ended up making $13 an hour. And then his younger brother never went to a regular college, just went to an auto mechanic school, and his first job offer was to make $30 an hour after just like 2 years of studying auto mechanics.
And you know what? And I complain about what I was doing because I went to school for broadcasting, and how I wasn't making that much money after I got out and all of that. Imagine these people that are going to college for liberal arts degrees.
Yeah. Oh, they definitely.
Philosophy, women's studies. How much money
Art
is for that? The only jobs you can get in like philosophy or women's studies or stuff like that is in colleges.
Yeah. Art history.
Yeah. Art history. Art Carney, Art Garfunkel.
That's right.
Yeah, and of course, we're not putting down those fields of study, but we're saying that it's ridiculous for people to be taking out 6-figure loans to pay to study those things.
Yeah.
And
indeed.
Yeah. So,
if it's what you want to study, we're not begrudging you that. But what we're saying is that you might get better return on investment if you study something else, something that will give you some skills that you can use, or B, if it's something you really, really want to do and you feel that you can make a benefit to society with it, you're being overcharged because of the student loans.
Oh yeah, and and then like I said, there are families, like I mentioned, the one where the one kid goes to college, ends up with a very modest living. The other, goes to vocational school, learns auto mechanics, which is a very, very marketable skill. And even without a 4-year college education, he's making a big chunk of money, and has a stable a job. And so I think that people need that's an example of somebody who actually weighed the cost and the benefits. He realized that going to a vocational school would benefit him more in the long run, and he's made a great career out of it.
Yeah, in retrospect, that's what I should have done.
Yeah.
And the same thing is that some colleges have outstanding vocational programs. Here in Joliet, Illinois, we've got Joliet Junior College, and for the longest time, it has been acknowledged as them having the best culinary arts department in the country. But
really? Wow.
And in fact, a couple years ago, I believe the director of the program was actually invited to be a judge on Hell's Kitchen, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
And um, but how much are we charging for that? I mean, at least with a junior college, a community college, the costs are a lot less than going to a 4-year. But
Right.
community colleges, junior college are for the most part, once again, government institutions, and those numbers are probably not correct. After you put the amount of tax money that's going to the colleges and that sort of thing, you got to figure how much are you actually paying for it. And with inflation and all of that, I was back in my early 20s. I was working some crappy fast food job, and I was just bored. So I took a couple of classes at Joliet Junior College, and it was relatively inexpensive for the time. It was like they're like, I don't know, $70 for each class, which isn't too bad. You go now, and classes are like, even at the junior colleges, they're outrageous. They're like $300-400 is for some of them, and then that's just individual classes. That's not if you're taking a whole program. Once again, I mean that the guarantee of student loans is an issue. Grants are an issue, and you can't discount the whole role that inflation plays in it either. But
well, it's interesting you bring that up. Some figures that I've seen is tuition for private nonprofit. That's when it gets me. Nonprofit colleges, the tuition is rising approximately twice as fast as inflation. Meanwhile, family income is not keeping up with inflation. It's reasonable, but it's trailing behind inflation.
Yeah.
That only happens with government interference primarily. I mean, there's things that might affect the price of oil, or a drought affects wheat, or freeze affects oranges, that kind of stuff. But
we expect
by and large, the only time that those sort of price discrepancies happen is when you get government involved.
Of course, yeah.
I think to me, I think the whole way to solve this issue about student loans is to allow them. I'm holding a toothbrush for some reason. Is to allow them to be able to allow people to be able to declare bankruptcy, if not on all of them, say 50% of them. Then the schools are going to wake up, and the gravy train ends. And Jack, we're losing our gravy train. We might have to actually be more reasonable, because we're not guaranteed this money anymore. They are guaranteed money. They have a monopoly on it. And if I'm not mistaken, student loans are the only thing you can't discharge.
Yeah, and it will become the standard. It'll become the standard. Someone will go to school, they'll get a brand new Discover card because they'll give one to anybody, and they run it up completely over full on room and board, and then take the loan for your tuition and just declare bankruptcy on all of it. Now you qualify for bankruptcy. I have way too much debt, couldn't possibly pay this. Throw it all away.
And you know what? It's the thing is that with an education, it occurs to me that it seems like that's something you should be able to declare bankruptcy on. I can think of things that you shouldn't be able to. Education, I think you should be. What if you got a crappy education? What if you got something that there needs to be more recourse in that degree, in that concern too. I mean, let's say you went to a school, and they taught you stuff like the Earth is flat, chemtrails are real, and crap, you cannot discharge that debt. You still owe it.
Yeah.
Let's say you go to a school, it's a state school, and you get this person that's teaching all sorts of crap about, government is great and they can do no wrong. They maybe shoot missiles over foreign countries and kill innocent babies, but government is still great and good, and you don't agree with it, and you think it's all horse crap. You can't discharge that debt, and you have no recourse, very little recourse to sue them, because And this is actually something this one of our listeners sent me this article, and this I didn't know if we were going to get to this, but it ties in with what I'm saying. And this is from Slate. The article is "Universities are right and within their rights to crack down on speech and behavior."
Oh my God, that's
This is an opinion piece on Slate, and the byline is "Students today are more like children than adults and need protection."
oh goodness.
Yeah, from each other. Come on, it's silly.
You know.
You know, and
If you don't agree with that, if you want your speech rights, I mean, there are organizations out there that'll fight for you, but ultimately, lawsuits will fail. I mean, not all the time, and even if they do succeed, you're spending a whole lot more money to lawyers to do this for you. Granted, there are organizations out there like FIRE, and I believe the Institute for Justice handles this sort of thing, and the ACLU, of course, but you have no recourse if you lose. And then you're stuck with not only your student loan debt, with lawyer debt, which I don't think that can be discharged. I'll have to look at that too.
And if you want to know how big of a business it is, $100 billion every year in college loans. That's how big that industry is.
Wow.
And most of that is in interest, I bet.
Well, that's the total amount borrowed.
Oh, borrowed.
That's the total amount borrowed. How much is paid with interest and how much is, floating around unpaid? Who knows? But yeah, every year, $100 billion. Yeah, up or down a little bit from one year to the next. Okay, someone's going to go, no, it's 106. Shut up. $100 billion is what's borrowed every year by students to go to college in this country.
Yeah, and there's a verse in the Bible, and whether one believes in the Bible or not is irrelevant, because this is something that anybody could embrace because it's so much true. Proverbs 22:7 says that the borrower will become a slave to the lender. Now,
yeah, exactly. That is 100. That's one of those things in the Bible that are 100% correct.
Yeah, and so the government loves it that that there are. You have all these tens of millions of students who are at the mercy of the government, and who are by the time they get out into the real world are enslaved with tens and very often hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to the government.
And if you can't pay it back, I mean, going on with the Bible analogy, you can't pay it back, then you can't declare bankruptcy. They garnish your wages. You get phone calls from the college every however many days or sometimes hours, and then on top of that, you get mailings from the college asking for donations.
Yeah. And I've always gotten that. I mean, my stepbrother Matt went to Rollins College in Florida, in the Orlando area.
Henry Rollins College.
No, it's I got you. Yeah. But yeah, he went to Rollins College, and his dad, my stepdad, for years and probably still does, got mailings asking for a donation. Over 10 years after he graduated. And I'm thinking, what, you didn't line their pockets enough when he was going there?
It actually pissed me off so much at one point that I actually called my college back, and this was a private college, and you guys are garnishing my wages. I have a family I cannot raise because of this, and I want these mailings stopped. To their credit, and I need to look up with this since I am an alumni, even though I didn't graduate. They said, well, if you're having problems, contact us, and we'll see what we can do about setting you up with a job that pays more than that. And I need to look into that. I totally forgot about that. And so to their credit, they did offer me solutions, but it's still the thing about getting the. I mean, it's like kicking a man when they're down. I mean, it's like a guy who drops their hat and then they fall face first into the mud picking it up. Man, I got to work on my analogies. But the point is that, I mean, you can't discharge the debt, and then you're also getting told that we're taking money from you at a high interest rate, and you're having a tough time making it, raising your family. We need more money.
Right. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
look at the credit cards. You know, you're more than 30 days late once, and they jack up your interest rate. Really, I'm having a hard time paying you. Let's make it more difficult for me to pay you.
As Gallagher once said, when you overdraw your checking account, the bank charges you more of what they know you don't have.
Yeah, it's so sad.
And you know, one thing, you know, I want to give a quick example to another industry. You know, to show an example of how when the government tries to control the market, how it always backfires and has unintended consequences. Let's go back to that hurricane they had several years ago down in Houston. I don't remember which one. I'm not very good at remembering hurricane names, but anyway, there was a hurricane in Houston several years ago, and people were evacuating, and the state attorney general heard that there were some stores, there's some businesses who were raising prices. So he threatened a $20,000 fine for anybody who raised prices because of the hurricane. Now, you know, liberals, of course, you know, applauded him for being compassionate, but let's see the compassion in action. What happened is that, you know, and let's go back to the supply and demand thing. You know, when this hurricane was impending, and people were wanting to evacuate, the demand for gasoline skyrocketed to an extreme immediately, and there obviously was not enough time for the market to, you know, meet the demand, so that drove the price through the roof. Now, let's say that you're leaving Houston, you got half a tank of gas, and you know you're one of those people who fills up every time he gets to the halfway point, and then suddenly you see that, you know, gas is $5 a gallon instead of the $3.25 it was yesterday. You say, well, look, I got enough gas to get to Austin. I'll just fill up when I get there, where the gas is the usual price. And you know, whereas if it were the regular price there in Houston, you would fill up, and a lot of people would, and you'd probably run out, and there would be people stranded. But not only that, but let's say that, you know, that the tank is on E, and you see gas is $5 a gallon, and you think, well, gee, we got to get out of here, but let's not buy a full tank. Let's just buy 3 or 4 gallons, enough to get us, you know, to safety. And what happens is when the price is allowed to come up to, you know, accommodate the sudden change in demand, that's gonna, in a case like that, it's gonna maximize the chance that, you know, everybody's gonna be able to evacuate. Whereas, you know,
right,
you know, if
that's a good point.
Come up, then people are going to, you know, a lot of people are going to fill up, and you're going to, you know, run out of gas, and you're going to have people stranded. And believe me, if you want to escape a hurricane, you would much rather have gas available at $5 a gallon than unavailable at $3 a gallon.
And you bring up a very good point, and sadly we don't have a whole lot of time to be able to delve into it. The whole education system is, because of the guarantee of student loans, is immune from the laws of supply and demand.
Yeah, and anytime something's immune from that, you're going to have trouble. Like in that case, like in the case of, you know, of so-called price gouging in the aftermath of natural disasters, or in the when national disasters are impending, and so many other examples across the board. I mean, Eric, before you were on the show, Jim gave an example of, you know, how government subsidies have, you know, resulted in Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all these other companies using high fructose corn syrup instead of sugar in their sodas.
And then in Atlanta, when the Mexican grocery stores started selling Coca-Cola from Mexico, which had sugar, Coke sued to stop selling that Coke because it was more popular than the stuff that Coca-Cola was producing right there in Atlanta, where their headquarters are.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and so, you know, it's so simple. I mean, you know, and I think the tragedy is that capitalism has such a bad name. Yeah, capitalism has such a bad name because of things that have nothing to do with capitalism. I mean, you know, 99% of the time when I hear people trash capitalism, and I challenge them on it and ask them why they hate capitalism, the answer that they give me, you know, is something that's because of big government, not because of capitalism. It's something because of corporate bailouts and, you know, regulations that protect certain industries and things like that. It has nothing to do with capitalism. It has nothing to do with free markets.
And that sound effect that everybody heard, that's our little timer. Dig Dug Dying means we have only 5 minutes left in the show. So once again, to everybody that listened or watched us today, thank you very much. You can get our show in the iTunes store. We are also on Stitcher. And we are just recently on the TuneIn app. TuneIn you can actually get on your smartphone, tablet, or Roku box, which is cool. You can also get Radio Fubar on TuneIn. On Sundays at noon Central Time, normal standard time, we are on the Tuiville Network, which once again that is on TuneIn, or you can go to their website at tuiville.com. That's TOUHYVILLE.com. Former co-worker of mine, Steve Toohey, and Facebook friend, puts our show on there. He's also got a good morning show every weekday at 6:30 in the morning, so and it's live, so you might want to check that out. And our intro and outro music that we're using is the song Springtide. It's by the band Springtide. You can visit them at www.springtide.jp. Yes, they are a Japanese group, but their music is awesome. You might want to check them out. And a note about next week's show. I've been wanting to try to move this show kind of more general interests from time to time, and every now and then we'll talk about, at Halloween, we'll talk about horror movies, or once in a while if a movie or a song or something comes out, or a TV show or something, we'll talk about that, and we'll trash the politics. Next week's show is going to be another general interest show, especially if you are a nerd and you watched television in the 90s. We have an extra special guest. This is the biggest guest this show has ever had. You are all going to welcome, because you're going to be here, Trace Beaulieu from Mystery Science Theater 3000 is going to be our guest. We're not going to talk politics. We're going to talk about the show Mystery Science Theater 3000. We're going to be talking about the stuff he's been up to. For those not in the know, Trace had actually had more than a dual role on the show, but his on-screen roles was that of Dr. Clayton Forrester, the mad scientist, and the voice of Crow T. Robot, and it's until he had left the show. And it's funny how this came about, because on my Facebook page, when you type something on Facebook, and if it's like a friend or a page or something that you friended or liked or whatever, you start typing something that'll automatically fill it in. Well, I typed up a thing about a list of people who I'd like to interview, and there were a few political people on there, like Penn Jillette and Gary Johnson, but I also put some entertainment people on there, and one of them was Trace Beaulieu, and he and it flagged him that I put this post up, and he's like, yeah, an interview could be possible. So we started talking in chat, and by gum, he's going to be on next Saturday at 9 a.m. Central. So everybody, if you love the show, you might want to tune in. It's going to be a good time. And with that, mark your calendar. And once again, from Morris, Illinois, this is Jim Goebel.
And from Illinois, Eric Ferguson. Sorry, Lec.
Oh, no problem. And from Indianapolis, Lex Zorn.
We will see you all next week. Once again, special guest Trace Beaulieu.
See ya.
Intro and outro music is the song Springtide by the band Springtide. Visit them at www.springtide.jp.